UFC Tampa is coming up this weekend versus Colby Covington and Joaquin Buckley. And I'm going to be going through all of my predictions. Throughout the predictions, we'll have some low risk faves that I'll be pointing out that you should be able to put some money down on. And we'll also be going over what I like to call my emotional underdogs. These emotional underdogs are underdogs that have cashed in the past and I have a soft spot for. And you can bet at your own risk on those, but there's a few we got in here. So let's get into the prelim routes. Prelim bout number one, we got Josephine Knudsen versus Piera Rodriguez. So starting right off the bat, we got a pretty easy prediction here. You're going to go with the K1 kickboxing experienced fighter right here in Josephine. And this is a one right off the bat where this is an easy favorite that I think you can be relying on. I know it's a little risky being WMMA, but there's just hardly any doubt that any takedowns that may come her way that she won't be able to overcome. She got taken out 3 times in her last fight and still racked up tons of strikes to win the fight. So Josephine Nuts, I think, is a clear, easy one to go ahead and go with. Next, we have Davy Grant versus Ramon Tavares. So I've been looking at past Davy Grant fights, and he was robbed against Adrian Yanez. As much as I love Adrian Yanez, Davy Grant did great in that fight, and Adrian Yanez is fighting Daniel Marcos up on this card, in the main card. And Davy Grant didn't look bad in that fight either against a undefeated fighter. And Davy Grant, I think, was either 37 or 38 at the time and still looked fantastic. Now he's going really a step down in competition. Davy Grant is a guy who's beat Rafael Assunção. He's gotten a lot of great wins, and he has great head movement, decent footwork, leaves his hands down, but he's been in so many wars. He can take these shots, and I just don't think Ramon has what he needs to get past someone like this. And I know that's crazy to say at 38 years old that Davy Grant's going to do it, but I really think this is a guy that you can rely on. He is also one of my emotional underdogs that I think you can maybe throw in there and not feel too bad about. Next, we have Miranda Maverick versus Jamie Lynn Horth. You got to go with Miranda Maverick here. I mean, Miranda Maverick is someone who's sadly been inconsistent with her results, but has put on decent performances throughout, beating Andrea Lee, being robbed in a decision against Macy Barber. All right, that is fact. She was robbed, and in my mind, that puts her above Macy Barber. Maybe now if they ran that fight today, it would go differently, but Miranda Maverick has an impressive resume and just good, well-rounded skills. Not necessarily a power puncher that's going to put anyone out, but is going to grind out that decision. So that's a Miranda Maverick easy win, but those odds don't make it really worth it to bet on it. Next is a incredibly hard matchup to predict. We have the tall, lanky boxer Sean Woodson going up against Fernando Padilla. This is a tough one to call. Fernando is well-rounded. He has, decent striking. He has submission ability. Maybe not a crazy takedown threat or anything, which may make it harder for him to go up against a guy like Sean Woodson. But Fernando can go into the firefight, and he can take it to Sean Woodson if he wants to. But Sean Woodson's striking skills, I feel like Fernando is going to want to keep this on the feet to maybe prove something, maybe give the fans a show, and I just feel like Sean Woodson has gone through so many different types of opponents at this point. I think he's going to come into this really prepared. This is a guy in Sean Woodson who has no torso. He is all legs, all arms, one of the longest featherweights you'll ever see, and I think he's going to be able to use all these tools, and I think it's going to be a great fight, and it could go either way. I wouldn't bet on this fight because of the capabilities of both guys, but I'm going to lean towards Sean Woodson for that one. Next, we got a great matchup at featherweight, with Miles Johns and Felipe Lima. These are guys that have seen both weight classes at bantamweight and featherweight, but Felipe Lima coming in on short notice to upset Naimov. That performance was amazing, and it opened our eyes to who this new prospect could be. And Felipe Lima is honestly giving me the Joshua Ban vibes of how young he is, but with how quickly he's already improving with his wide berth of ways to win a fight, and Also, so many people are predicting this fight for Miles Johns by submission, and I don't see why people are seeing that. Obviously, Miles Johns is going to come in here with grappling to try and get Felipe down, but we got to remember how Felipe looked in his opening fight against Naimov. I mean, it was a fantastic performance. His takedown defense was well on display there. I think you got to give it to Felipe Lima coming in. I think he's building momentum, and I think he's really trying to build himself into something. I don't know if he'll stay at featherweight. I could see him making a move down, but man, I this is also going to be a tough one to call though. Miles Johns is no schmuck. He's not a bum. That's nothing like this. We pretty much have close matchups throughout this entire card. But I'm going to go with Felipe Lima. I think this is a prospect you got to look out for. This is going to be a guy I'm going to be covering on the prospect showcase. This is a really good guy. Next, we got Drakkar Klose versus Joel Alvarez. Man, they put Drakkar at a nasty, disrespectful underdog, but I agree, sadly, that Joel Alvarez will take this. I think Drakkar has rediscovered what he can really bring after that Beneil Dariush loss. Sadly, the injuries have kept him out for a long time, but Drakkar, I think he's just at a disadvantage in a lot of areas, not just the height, but in the reach. And Joel can also, he can wobble guys and he can put them out, and he can do that with knees. He can do that with straight punches. And I just think he has more tools against Drakkar. I think Drakkar can be up for a firefight, but I think as time goes on in his career, I think he's getting less and less into that style. I just I don't see him being able to, you know, put on that kind of damage on Joel, where he just went with Elvis Brenner, and we saw how dangerous Elvis Brenner can be. Is Drakkar Klose going to show anything more than that at this point in his career? As much as I really like Drakkar, I can't see it. And I think Joel, if he can figure out the weight again and keep it going, I think he can keep building that momentum. So we're going to go with Joel Alvarez here. Next, we got Michael Johnson versus Ottoman Azaitar. I just do not like how Azaitar has looked in his past two fights. Finished back to back. That's not great, especially if you're going to go against someone like Michael Johnson. He wasn't going against bad competition at all, but I did not like the way Ottoman Azaitar was using his head movement in his last fight. It looked very easy to spot, very easy to counter. And I just think Michael Johnson is going to get a read on that pretty quickly. And although Michael Johnson's at the tail end of his career, it's hard for me to see Ottoman making the improvements he needs in not a very long period of time to beat Michael Johnson, who has so many great finishes dating back early on his career. The skill set, I think, just is going to go to Michael Johnson, and it's hard not to think that. But obviously, Michael Johnson's at the tail end of his career, and I just wouldn't bet on a fighter who's a favorite, who is getting up there in age, against someone who may have made those improvements that he needed to make. And maybe we'll employ a different strategy on Michael Johnson. Maybe we'll try to do something else to maybe tire him as the fight goes on. Maybe aim for the leg kicks. Maybe he'll do something different, but I just don't think that's going to happen. High potential finishes on this card. I think you're going to be looking at high potential finishes on Drakkar Klose versus Alvarez if you want to just bet on a finish, or on Johnson and Azaitar. I accidentally spelled Azaitar's name wrong there, but I think those are two fights you can both expect finishes out of that may be something that you want to look at there. Next, we're moving on to the main card. So first on the main card, we got, make sure I get his name right, Navajo Sterling versus Duco Tokos. Navajo Sterling, this is going to be a pretty easy call here. He is going to win this fight. It's going to be emphatic. The city kickboxing background, I mean, everyone's talking this guy up. Izzy said something along the lines of, I think he's going to end up being better than I am, just because of how well-rounded this guy is at the moment. I just don't think anyone's going to be really stopping him at the unranked levels of light heavyweight, so we're going to probably see some domination there. Next is going to be a tough one. We have Adrian Yanez versus Daniel Marcos, and a lot of what I go into this prediction with is how I viewed both of their Davey Grant fights. Daniel Marcos clearly beat Davey Grant Adrian Yanez did not clearly beat Davy Grant, and that's a tough one for me because I know Adrian Yanez. He is a more of a boxer, but I know he has kicks. I know he has head kicks. I know he has leg kicks. It's just he's so in love with his hands. I'm nervous after the struggle he's been through recently that although it's been a while since we last saw him, I'm not sure what kind of improvements he's going to decide to make going into this matchup against a guy who is undefeated, surging, and he's got a lot of tools, and he's very technical, and he's very clean. And although I would love to pick an underdog in Adrian Yanez, I would love to pick that, and I'm very close to picking that. I just I can't, and I have to go with Daniel Marcos. I wouldn't bet on this one either though, because Giannis always has a chance to knock someone out. He's shown it in the past where he does have that power to just put someone's lights out. Also, to be able to go to the body and head. Who knows if Daniel Marcos gets a little injured and during the fight and Giannis gets him up against the fence, what kind of work Giannis can do. But it's hard for me to see anything else but a Marcos decision, honestly. Uh, that is what it is. Next, we're moving on to Vitor Petrino versus Dustin Jacobian. I just cannot agree with this line. I understand why, because of Dustin Jacoby's very spotty record, but in terms of the skill sets, Vitor Petrino is very plotty, but he's explosive. He's got a lot of power. Dustin Jacoby is just a very, very, very technical kickboxer, and unless Vitor Petrino can find some way to find a shot to put him out, which he very well can. I mean, Dominic Reyes did that to Jacoby. We all saw it, but that was also Dominic Reyes who was able to beat John Jones in a decision. No matter what the judges said, we know what happened. And can you really put that much stock in that kind of loss? For me, I don't think that's warrants putting Dustin Jacoby at a plus 210, maybe a plus 130 for me. But I think this is a underdog that I think could cash because I don't think Vitor Petrino is going to be able to technically get to Jacoby in a way that's going to put him out. I think Jacoby's going to actually edge a decision here. I think you can actually rely on this underdog, and I'm straight up putting it to where you should bet on that. A plus 210 for Dustin Jacoby on a guy who can kickbox, who can be technical, who can have footwork against a guy like Vitor Petrino, who's not he's explosive, but that's a guy you can take into the later rounds and you can still be beating him on points. So I'm gonna go with Dustin Jacoby here. I think he can do it. I really do think. I know it's a spotty record, but I'm gonna rely on that. Next we have Manel Cap versus Bruno Silva. After the Muhammad Makayev fight, we have Manel Cap, and for me, you just gotta expect that Manel is going to go in there and fix all these opinions that people have been building about him throughout his career. I think Bruno Silva is a good fighter. I think he brings a lot to the table, but Manel Cap is what a lot of people see as that next generation of flyweight. I think he's still got a lot of things to improve on, but this is a guy who can put someone out at flyweight. This is a guy who has a lot of skill and who can be patient and can implement a game plan, even when it's someone as annoying as Muhammad Makayev. Although he didn't take that decision, he's not going against bad fighters. All right, Manel Cap goes against good guys. Now the weight is a question. The weight will always be a question, and who knows how he is at this point, cutting down to 125. Maybe it'll drain him this time around, but I'm gonna comfortably say we can rely on Manel Cap here. That's someone you're gonna want to put on your parlay. To be honest, this is someone you can rely on. Next, we have Cub Swanson versus Billy Quarantillo. I like these odds. These are respectable odds. These are odds that make sense to me. Plus 135 for Cub Swanson, minus 155 for Billy. It's probably of that mindset of maybe Cub is a little more over the hill than Billy is. But in terms of the skill sets that both of them provide, Cub Swanson to me is a much faster, more technical striker. Um, and I don't like all the damage that Billy Quarantillo is taking. It wasn't that long ago that Cub Swanson got that nasty knockout over who was it? Who did he get that crazy knockout over? It was nope. Okay, it was actually two against Jonathan Martinez. A Jonathan Martinez KO TKO 2 years ago, but that's not that long ago. To be able to KO a guy like Jonathan Martinez, who is able to go all 3 rounds with Aldo, I mean that's a good accomplishment. That's a great win. And to me, I just see two guys who maybe have semi-questionable chins getting up there in age. I feel like Cub Swanson is going to be that guy who can take it to the end and maybe even put out Billy. I think he can actually put out Billy Quarantillo. So we're going to bet on a Cub Swanson here. Maybe a little bit of a dangerous underdog to bet on because they're both such action-packed guys that either one of these guys could knock each other out. But I just think Cub Swanson has a bit of that technical edge. And then we get to the main event of the evening, Colby Chaos Covington versus Joaquin Buckley. This is such an easy one to call for me. I know it's crazy to say that about someone like Colby Covington who's faced the competition he's faced, but there was nothing in that Leon Edwards fight that gave me any confidence that he is going to be able to do what he did when he was younger. He is not able to push a pressure on guys like he used to. That's just not something that is in his toolbox at the level that he needs it in the top 5. That's just not going to happen, I think, this time around. And Joaquin Buckley seems to be coming into his peak, his prime. He's the one that has been studying his opponents. Like he said in his interview today, actually, with Demetrius Johnson, he watched all of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's YouTube videos to learn how he fights. So this is a guy who goes in there with a plan to knock you out. And the way he knocked Stephen Wonderboy Thompson out was very hard to watch. He loaded up like a spring, Mike Tyson style, ducking his head both sides, coming in, and then just releasing that spring force onto Wonderboy's face, and it was a rough KO. And I cannot imagine a guy like Colby taking a shot like that, or even pushing forward on Buckley, where Buckley may counter him as he's coming in. And if it turns around and Joaquin Buckley is the one decides to push on Colby, I don't think Colby can take those kind of shots for a very long time. He was able to be rocked by shots from Usman, who does have good straight punches, good 1-2, but not the same kind of power that Joaquin Buckley has. And we can see that Buckley also has been working on his grappling. The takedowns he was able to get, although it was on a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Wonderboy has great takedown defense, really good takedown defense, and he was able to get him down very quickly and high amplitude takedowns as well. You got to go with Joaquin Buckley. And you got to give him a bet. And I think you need to show this man some respect. I think he is, since his Kevin Holland loss, he's gone through so much change and so much rediscovery of who he is as a fighter, going up to middleweight to take on the tougher fights and get more money, to moving now into thinking about title contention and getting a win streak, something that is kind of an opposite mindset to Kevin Holland, where he's here exclusively to make money and have fun fights. And it's weird to see where they've ended up in both of their careers. I'm going to probably make a video on comparing the two careers since they both fought. But this is a Joaquin Buckley win, and I'm so excited for it. I'm so excited to hopefully see Colby Covington knocked out cold, and maybe we'll have to deal with him taking top 5, top 10 fights anymore. But for parlay of the card, something that I would recommend is you get Knudsen, Josephine, Manel Cap, and Joaquin Buckley. I think if you put those 3 together, you got a pretty nice one. If you're feeling spicy and you're like, I just want to, can I get one underdog on there? If you're feeling spicy, put Davy Grant on there. Davy Grant, I feel, is such a reliable underdog that you shouldn't avoid putting him in and feeling too bad about it. Even just like a small side bet of Davy Grant, just a little bit on that underdog, I don't think will hurt you at all. But that's all of my predictions, all of my bets. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. And let me know which of these you think maybe were good calls and like good fights to bet on. Maybe ones that you think maybe you should bet on this one, because I saw this, I saw that. But let me know down in the comments. But thank you.